everyone. It's Nashville Savvy. I'm your host. We have a new intro, so we're trying it out. I hope you guys can give me some feedback on it. I'm kind of in love with it because it reminds me of like old school Southern rock, bad A entrance music. So so I'm your host, Megan Leipitz, like a little underslept and overtired. But that's because this week has been the special session that's been going up on the Hill here in Nashville for the public safety special session that was called by Governor Lee and now being fulfilled by the General Assembly. So today we're going to go through some of that. I'll make it brief, but I want to give you a couple of the nuggets of the drama that's going on right then. And then we'll get through a couple local things before we wrap it up today. So today, a lot has already happened. So if you haven't been listening or paying attention to any of the media or just the actual committee meetings that have been happening throughout the week, there is a significant movement, I would say a power movement happening within the Senate right now. So let's back up, and I'm going to remind you really quickly how it is that a bill becomes a law and what needs to happen as far as getting any of these bills through and onto the governor's desks for him to sign into law. Both the Senate and the House, so both chambers, they have to pass companion bills that match exactly. They both have to pass them for a bill to be passed by the state legislature. So this means that if one chamber decides to shoot down or not pass through a bill, then even if the other chamber, say the House passes one of the bills, but the Senate doesn't pass a bill, then it dies. Like it's not going to make it all the way through to the governor's desk. So what has happened over the very beginning, since the beginning of this special session, is that the Senate has really honed in on, it's really between 3 and 4 bills. So the bills that they've honed in on, it's getting down to the last few days of committee meeting for the House side of everything. And it's frustrating some of the GOP leadership and honestly, all of the leadership from both sides over in the House that the Senate has basically gone through and only passed on final reading 3 public safety bills, and then 1 bill that would add some more financing to some of this mental health care stuff, plus, of course, covering the tab for special session. So I'm going to explain why this is important, but first I'm going to go through what ones have been passed all the way through by the Senate at this point. There's SB 7086. This bill codifies the executive order that was put forward, you may recall, by the governor. This was done pretty much around the end of General Assembly. I think that the actual executive order might have come out in June, but it established this streamlined communication to update the Tennessee Instant Check System, ensuring up-to-date information for firearm background checks for purchases. So basically, if somebody is arrested or tried in court and they're deemed to, like, that information is supposed to be in this system so that when they check you when you're buying a firearm, they're trying to make it more efficient so that information gets into the system within 72 hours. And that was the executive order. This bill would codify that into law. There's only a slight change to part of it, which would mean it's 3 business days that this information would have to be put into the system, not 72 hours, because they were worried that, when you add weekends in there, it gets dicey. So we've seen that bill get passed all the way through by the Senate. We have SB 7085, which is firearms. It's a bill that would subsidize firearm, like the safes and the locks. It has a tax break for providing Tennesseans who buy a safe or a lock. And it also, I think it has a fund in there where you can basically get a safe or gun safety lock for free. And on top of that, they also want to do a campaign where they're adding some stuff that it looks like is actually something that they already do, but some more education around your gun course, where it includes the use of these safety locks and devices. So that one made it through. Then we have SB 7088, which is the human trafficking bill. So what this would do was it would create a annual report where the TBI would have to compile all the information that they collect about human trafficking. This means not just sex trafficking, but also labor trafficking across the state. And they have to do an annual report in December. And the reason that that this was brought about is because many of both reps and senators in the Tennessee legislature are looking to use that data to write up some new legislation to tackle this issue when we get into General Assembly this coming year. So those are the three solid public safety bills that we saw pass all the way through on third reading, with some amendments added to some of them, plus the one that basically it's the bill that says, yeah, we're going to foot the bill to pay for the special session, plus a few added bells and whistles. I'm not going to get into it right now because there's some interesting stuff in there too. This has upset House leadership. It's upset a lot of people in the House because now the House is still debating different bills in their committees, and the Senate has basically, as of today, they have adjourned until Monday. So they're like, we're done. We're at this point, we're not adding any more bills. We're not going to pass any more through. And so now the House is just deliberating and wrestling over, there was over 100 bills in this that were filed that were under the parameters of this call. And they're still deliberating and debating over these bills. And at this point, truly only these ones that I outlined that the Senate put through are the only ones that have the chance at this point to be codified and made into law. So this has been an interesting power struggle. Now, how this came about, how did the Senate decide to only have these three bills, plus, of course, the one with the financing, so technically four? Well, this has also been an interesting power play. And though I have nothing on the record, I have noticed that Leader Lamberth, who is the House Majority Leader for the Republicans, has commented on this twice in committee meetings. The first time that I heard him comment on it was yesterday. I'm going to pull up his quote because he really alluded to what I think he was, alluding to the power struggle and who is it that's actually doing this. So he said, so there are 37 bills that are still moving through the House. Many of you that are not, or that are here today, are advocating for several of those bills. Those bills are sponsored by members of the House, and as far as I'm concerned, every single one of them should continue moving forward. There are apparently only three that I have been told by somebody in the Senate that someone somewhere decided that only three would move forward there. In my humble opinion, that's not acceptable. He mentioned it again today and called out the Senate for clearly indicating that they are not here to do the work. So some underlying rifts are happening, and we're going to be trying to dive more into that and get some more actual information that I can back up and corroborate with evidence. But there are definitely power plays happening in the Senate. There is a clash going on between the Senate and the House now. And now the Senate has deliberated until Monday. And at this point, they show no indication that they're willing to add any more bills, pass them through to add them to the list so that they can actually make it all the way through the governor's desk. I have a feeling that might change. We still have committee meetings in the House. We're still going to have backroom discussions, I'm sure, between leadership and different people and on each side in each chamber. The one bill that seems to be one that will be interesting because there's now a lot more attention on it than even yesterday. There wasn't as much attention on it, is the autopsy bill that was brought forward. I will give you the number, so if you guys want to look it up. There was an autopsy bill filed in both the House and the Senate. In the Senate, it is SB 7090, but in the House, it's HB 7007. So, interestingly, this bill came forward. It's been touted as a strong bipartisan bill meant to protect covenant victims and all child victims of, something like homicide, something violent. And what this bill is outlined to do is to allow for the families to seal the autopsy reports of children who have been victims of crimes like these. And so today we heard some during a committee meeting for the House this morning, the Government Operations Committee meeting. We heard testimony. We heard a woman named Mary Joyce testify on the behalf of both the Scruggs family, who their daughter, for one, Pastor Scruggs is a pastor of Covenant, and their daughter was murdered in the Covenant tragedy, along with, she mentioned, another fellow Covenant parent, Aaron Kinney. So Ms. Joyce was testifying on their behalf to support the autopsy bill. And according to Joyce during the discussions, she said that this bill is absolutely necessary. It needs to get passed during special session because media outlets are holding the autopsy reports of the 3 murdered children. And if these don't get passed, that they are going to release them to the public. And that's something that she said during her testimony in the committee meeting this morning. We also heard a testimony from the other side of this that really the language has some unintended consequences and actually can do harm, that it unintentionally can do harm to some things. And we heard from a woman named Ms. Fisher, who was not asking to completely kill the bill, but to take it, kill it for the special session, take a deeper look into it, take a deeper look into the language, and bring it back during General Assembly, which will be at the beginning of next year. Of course, because of the high emotions, this testimony that this is a now or never, do or die bill, and if you don't pass it, then you're basically not protecting Covenant families, has added another layer to some of this drama that we've been seeing going on during this entire session between the House, the Senate, and of course, all of the media frenzy that's going on amongst the high emotions, the real raw emotions. And, it's definitely an interesting take. So immediately after that testimony in the House this morning, there was supposed to be a Senate session, and we were kind of waiting to see what they were going to do. And interestingly enough, nobody showed up to the Senate session. They did not have a quorum, so they delayed until 11 a.m. this morning, which is where they decided to then adjourn until Monday next at 4 p.m. So we will be seeing them probably on Monday at 4 p.m. As of right now, it doesn't look like they're adding any more bills to anything. So we will see what happens over the next few days. But drama. I'm barely scratching the surface. But of course, we've been live tweeting from special session. We also have a couple articles that are in the Nashville politics section at thepamphleteer.co. And we will be unfolding more stuff. And there's been some really interesting stuff that's been going on that I think that you guys would like to check out when you get a chance. Now we're going to move over to local corner. So our local corner section is usually something that I like or something interesting, something cultural in Nashville. Well, I have been just living at the Capitol all week. So my culture for the week for you guys. Interestingly enough, they created a lot of new rules during this special session, specifically for this session, understanding that it was probably going to be highly contentious. One of the rules was about holding up signs in the gallery or when you're in the audience watching the committee meetings and this floor session meetings. Another one was that you can't, have sound amplifying devices. You're meant to be quiet. Well, an interesting thing that's happened is snapping instead of clapping has become a thing in the gallery. And honestly, despite the fact, like, regardless of how you feel about anything that's going on, it's quite amusing. The snapping is like being in a like at a poetry reading. So you do snaps instead of claps. And I kind of want them to keep that. I would love to keep the snapping during General Assembly, the snaps for the class. So that was a funny thing amidst all of this high tension, high emotion, passionate, angry, and like sad sometimes special session. And of course, it's been nothing but a media frenzy. But I will say, me personally, there has been some interesting things said about how many troopers have been up there, but it made me, as a reporter going up there, feel a lot safer, to be honest with you, that there was a police presence up on the hill. So I'm going to put that on the record, and I want to thank all of those who have kept everybody safe during the week. And I find that that for me personally, I really appreciated it. So thank you. That's an add-on to the local corner. The last thing I wanted to talk about is Metro Mayhem. Now, Metro Mayhem is usually some ridiculous quote that somebody says. I haven't been paying much attention to Metro this week, but I did want to mention that, of course, you may have heard or may not have heard that Freddie O'Connell, one of the mayoral candidates, he came down, tested positive for COVID. So he was quarantining up until today. He's going to make his reemergence apparently to society. Last night, him and his contender, Alice Rowley, they did a virtual forum. Tonight, they're going to be doing an in-person forum. So we're going to be welcoming Mr. O'Connell back from his quarantining and get right back into this mayoral race amidst this special session. So anyways, y'all, I will still be live tweeting if this session drags out. And so please check me out at Megan Lee Writes. That's on Twitter, or at Real Pamphleteer on Twitter. We will be live tweeting. And of course, as always, thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'm always eager to point people in the direction of local information, especially around things where a lot of misinformation is getting spread around this special session. So feel free to hit me up. I always enjoy you guys joining me, and I will see you again hopefully next week.